This is Governor Bob Ehrlich. Good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Go! You're watching Dr. Politics.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody.
Friday
We're just, a great week. We're just, well, not a great week for some people, but we had an awesome event last night with Governor Ehrlich. We celebrated 20 years. Jeff was there. I was there. Dave was lost in traffic. And it was a great event. Well over 400 people there. So if I had to guess, I'd say 450 sounds like a fair number, right, Jeff? About 450 plus.
I was guessing 300 because I was doing a rough estimate because we had half the area was like 5 tables long by 3 tables wide, which was 15. Each table fit 10. So I'm like, that's like 150 per side. So it's like 300. So that was my estimation, was about 300.
No, it actually, we had some tables with 12. Some tables with 11, and what I've actually noticed, people who are sitting at tables at 12, why don't you just go sit there? Because we had a couple of overflow tables we had, just in case. I mean, we probably had about 30 people pay at the door. Our VIP was 90 people in the VIP. It was crazily successful there. And Governor Ehrlich, I think, in my opinion, I think that's probably one of his best speeches ever. Jeff, I mean, that's probably the first time you've heard Governor Ehrlich speak, right? No, actually, you heard him in Howard County. Yeah, you've heard him in Howard County.
I heard him several places. Howard County, when he was up in Carroll, doing a smaller event. So I've heard him speak several times. But yeah, he was very eloquent. Had his like top 10 list he did, and even just the intros for him. I didn't realize honestly all that Ehrlich had done. I was not in the state when he was governor, so. It's funny because normally you think of Republicans, I mean, I'll generalize here as being like, not necessarily like anti-climate, but generally you see like the left being more like about the ecology and, being progressive in terms of wanting to preserve nature and stuff. But Ehrlich did a lot to preserve the Chesapeake. I was surprised how much he really did. I mean, obviously we know about the, ICC that he pushed through after, was it 30 years of just being in like planning? I didn't realize it was that long too.
50 years, actually.
Yeah, it was in the 1950s when it first went on the books.
It was crazy. And then he basically, called in a favor, and within, his term, he got it all completed, which is just amazing.
And that was done with Henry Cisneros, who was a Democrat. Bill Clinton, and Henry Cisneros actually got things moving for us, so to speak. Henry was a Democrat. Although I've heard he's done some great things as he's chased down criminals in D.C. I think there's a story about he was driving, there was a hit and run, and he basically got out of his car and chased the guy down or something like that.
I didn't realize too that it's the school of choice. I mean, I'm all for school of choice. I didn't realize that the teachers union was so against that. I mean, I don't think that it really would affect them. I mean, if a kid goes to one school, another school, why do teachers care?
Because it's about less tax dollars. They feel they're losing out on tax dollars for their school.
Well, if that's really the issue, then we need to talk about how school districts are districted, because initially, they weren't in districts like that. They were based upon counties, but we've we've gerrymandered all the school districts so that again, it's I don't know whose fault it is, but that's not the way it was.
Yeah, I mean that whole idea about school choice and anything about tax dollars and resources that the teachers union complain about, that's a spurious argument. It doesn't hold water. I mean,
Nope.
we see this across the country that the teachers unions, they are adamantly against this. They don't like the competition. By and large, these charter schools and other types of schools have succeeded. I mean, parents when they're set up, the parents flock to them. They are looking for an education alternative for their kids. There's so many bad schools in the public education system, and they're looking for something good. Teachers hate merit. Anything merit related. There's a case in LA right now, the Los Angeles Unified School District, where there's a law there in California in that district that says that they have to actually allow for co-location of charter schools. And so there's a bunch of school buildings where, in essence, they share resources with charters. But the teachers union has vociferously complained about that. It can be bad. The problem for the charters is that they're given a little bit of space, but not necessarily enough to operate a school. So sometimes they actually have to use one school operates on like 3 different campuses. They have to split it up. The teacher says, "Oh, but you're taking away all these resources, A, B, C, whatever." But and the bottom line still is that they don't like these things. They actually got the local city council, whatever, to pass a resolution to, in essence, almost extinguish these charter schools there by putting another barrier up there for what they called endangered students, and they had a whole wide list of things of what qualifies as kind of like endangered students, and in essence to try to give the union an upper hand in this. It's ludicrous that in Maryland, like some other states, we can't get this done. I mean, Ehrlich, I mean, I know he tried. I mean, this is things that parents want this.
Yeah.
But the teachers unions won't allow this to happen.
And here's a couple of cities that's going to shock you, Don, that have charter schools. New York City and the city of Philadelphia. They've got a charter school for everything. They got a charter school for engineering. There's a charter school for performing arts. There's a charter school for architecture. There's a charter school for computer science. There's a charter school for robotics. They got a charter school for everything. And those kids, go on to college.
The District of Columbia has charter schools of all places.
The school without walls, right next to GW. The school without walls, right by GW.
I mean, they've had wasn't it? Is it Fenty? And I think he was one of the. I think he was one of the guys that actually pushed charter schools, much to the the labor teachers unions hated that. I mean, they fought him tooth and nail, but Fenty realized the benefit of that for those kids. There's a bunch of terrible schools in DC, and they set up these charters, and they helped a lot of students. I mean, you're talking about there are cities where they realize is that this is a good alternative. Students learn at different paces. Sometimes they need different things. Sometimes some students need to be challenged more. Let them go ahead and do that. The voucher programs. I mean, they assign things. The unions hate this idea that this taxpayer money that they think that they have every right to could be reassigned to a charter school, and something, and there's maybe better education that could be taught elsewhere. Oh, no. And how many times, especially during the pandemic, right, guys? How many times do we see the teachers unions? They fought tooth and nail about returning to the classroom. They put up so many barriers to try to do it. I thought, weren't they the ones that said, we're here for the students. We're here for the students' best interest. And yet they fought against that every step of the way.
They were there for the students until they weren't there for the students.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And what's funny is like they also, during the pandemic, they also wanted to they told parents not to be there when they're doing their class. Why would you want the parents in the same room as during a Zoom learning,
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's a good point. It's like, no, oh, wait a minute. No, the parents can't look in on these classes. Heaven forbid that they see what we're teaching them.
Yeah.
I think for so many, it's become like a jobs program. They got all these positions in the schools. It's like all gets feather bedded, and they guard their money. They think it's their money. very jealously, even though I think they're losing sight of the point. It's about the child, it's about their education, and everybody else is way secondary.
Yeah, Dave, my wife and I have talked about this. As you mentioned, this feather bedding. Look at a majority of the public school systems in the country. They are so top heavy with administrators, right? It's like, why are we paying all these administrators? Montgomery County's got tons of people in the middle management ranks, but what the heck are they doing? They're not in the classroom teaching. They're a bunch of bureaucrats in education that are there to protect all the teachers and not really act in the interest of the students.
And the whole DEI stuff, the diversity, equity, inclusion.
And one thing Gov mentioned last night is that this is 2002. Basically, they're spending on average, Maryland was spending about $12,000 per student in public schools, and yet we were graduating kids in Baltimore City that couldn't do basic math and reading. Yeah, we were,
not a single one pass. We had a 0%, rate for people passing these tests.
And back and I mean that was back when things were not as bad as they are today. And you still had similar numbers. I mean, today I'm not even shocked that they have schools where nobody graduates. They have a 0 graduation rate in Baltimore City.
Look, I mean, we're everybody who's a taxpayer, it basically winds up, a majority of the tax, property tax money goes into the education system, right? I have no kids in the public schools anymore. I wouldn't object to funding the education system in Montgomery County if they actually were interested in teaching the students something good. But
Montgomery County spends roughly, this is back when you ran for state senate, they were up to spending $18,000 per student in MCPS schools. You know how much of that got actually to the classroom? Jerry Cave, if he's watching, he might tell us, but I believe it was like less than $200 got to the classroom of that $18,000. That money was going for administrative stuff. And every September and August, we see the commercial about, what would you call a career where you spend 10% of your own income for your job? A teacher. Teachers spend their own money for kids, making sure kids have the school supplies they need. You guys are sending kids home with laundry list of things you want, everything from Kleenex to, cleaning supplies, hand wipes, hand sanitizer.
I mean, that's a great point, because that's where I was going to go next too. It's just that, we pay all this money in property taxes that are going into the education, that basically funds, the education of Montgomery County and whatever. And yet the teachers send, at the beginning of the school year, they send this laundry list out to the parents of like things that we need. And if they can't get it, then the teachers often, try to supplement that with their income to do that. It's like, why is that necessary? We spend all this money. Well, if you eliminated a bunch of those middle management positions, you'd actually be able to spend money and get some classroom supplies that the kids need. Hello.
Yep. It's ridiculous, And then around Christmas time, I remember when Michael Graham was on the radios in the morning, he was talking about how there was a school in Montgomery County that sent a list of suggested gifts for teachers, and one of the things they had on there was something from Tiffany's. Really, Tiffany's. You want parents to buy. And I remember Michael Graham had somebody from MCPS to go, well, Montgomery County has the most affluent people in the country living here. They can afford to go to Tiffany's and buy the teachers a gift from Tiffany's.
Yeah. I do think that. We're still. I think Virginia's better, off than Montgomery County is overall. I think we saw when Youngkin ran, the interest of the parents, they really started to stand up in the classrooms and fight against curriculum and things like that. We haven't seen anywhere really near that extent in Montgomery County. I think the parents still have not gotten involved enough, and they don't understand. It's like, if you're living out in Potomac and all these things, you're paying a ton of money in property taxes. But what are your kids really getting out of this? If you actually looked at the curriculum and paid attention, I think you'd be shocked. But part of the problem too is that Montgomery County, what do we have? 75% of the counties, easily, into the Democrat left, so they're probably fine with it, but there's still conservative parents out there that are shocked. And if you've got, what we've seen over time too is that, if you go to the Hispanic parents or certain aspects, in certain religions, a lot of times, they get awakened when stuff pops up that they were not expecting to see. We saw that with different things with Hispanic students. I think that was we first came up to, like it wasn't bullying. I guess it was the kind of this whole sensitivity training and all this kind of stuff that came up.
Yes.
And all this kind of stuff. When Ana Sol Gutierrez was in charge of the school board. And
yes, Ana Sol Gutierrez, who her voicemail started in Spanish and not in, and this is when she was representing Kensington, Maryland, and Chevy Chase, District 18. Her welcome message, because Mike Graham played that on air, and it starts in Spanish, and then after the whole Spanish stuff is done, she does it in English, and I'm thinking like, English is the language we do business in, quite frankly, Can you not be so blatant about some of the stuff you say?
Yeah, it's too bad we live in a county where, because we're the conservatives are in such a minority that our voices really are never heard. They were completely ignored, and yet there are plenty of parents. I mean, this is why I know a lot of parents who homeschool their kids. They just won't touch the county school system at this point.
Yeah.
And I think what do you call? It's just ridiculous what they're doing. And I think they get away with murder in these schools, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, Ehrlich has shown just incredible resiliency since he left office, and his popularity is, really is unequaled in the state.
His numbers are higher than Larry Hogan's.
I give Bob Ehrlich, so much credit. I mean, he failed to win back office, but he has been a stalwart of the party in Maryland and has been more than willing to help the party out. Just anyway, you ask him to speak, if he can put it into a schedule and get it there, he's going to do it. So, I don't know how much money, he's raised, even since he's left office, but I'm sure it's a pretty fair sum of money. And it's a guy, I mean, it's a guy that just remains very popular. You put him out there and people will come to see him. And, didn't we have that discussion about some of the other Lincoln Day dinner and Reagan Day dinner thing we were talking today at lunch? Just, who are these counties putting up? I mean, Reince Priebus. Yeah. I mean, are people really coming out in Montgomery County to see that?
I'm not. And here's the thing: we've had Reince Priebus before. Geez, I think my TV just turned on. Hold on, let me turn it off.
So I was going to say too that Dwight, had mentioned before about some of, and this is nothing about his policy, but the differences between like Larry Hogan and Governor Ehrlich. I mean, just in terms of both their accessibility and their just willingness to help out the party. I mean, in the speech last night, Ehrlich was talking about how he was opening up his his place to everyone because like who has ever been to the mansion?
I believe the line he uses, the Clampetts. He basically said the Clampetts moved into the mansion from a townhouse in Arbutus. And I think Kendall said it best. They didn't like it. We put those big blow-up pumpkins. So at Christmas time, we decided we'd go all out. And we had the blow-up Christmases all over the governor's mansion in the front lawn.
And I don't want to be overly critical about Governor Hogan because
no, we're not criticizing Governor Hogan. We're just saying that
politics evolve and they change, and he it's amazing that that he was able to win 2 terms like that. He definitely shocked the Democrats by winning the first time around, and then he kind of breezed in the second time around.
Well, the second, I mean, let's be a little frank. The second time he had one of the easiest opponents the second time around. If he had, say, a more seasoned Democrat, I think he still would have won, but he would have had to fight for it.
Yeah,
He had a socialist.
Ehrlich in a lot of ways was gifted Kathleen Kennedy Townsend.
Yes.
Not anywhere near as strong a candidate as the Democrats probably could have had if they thought about it. But
well, it was a coronation for KKT.
On the Kennedy name, you think it's Kennedy, and that's going to mean you can win anywhere. That has proven that it's not necessarily going to work anymore.
That was also the year Uncle Teddy was in a fight for his life against a guy named Mitt Romney when he ran for Senate, in Massachusetts that year.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting to see. I mean, there's definitely a contrast between the style of Ehrlich versus Hogan, and Hogan. I'll always say this. I mean, Hogan wants to run for office as senator in Maryland. I think that's where he needs to start. I think he would get support there. He could rebuild some of those bridges with the Trump people that he burned, in that sense by trying to, because he'd be a credible candidate, one that is electable, one that Democrats would even consider voting for in Maryland, as a senator. But as a presidential candidate or anything like that, no. I mean, he needs to go and fix some things in between and show that he can do this before he runs for the highest office in the land. You can't, for him to go from governor after bashing Trump so much to try to run for the presidency. There's not enough anti-Trump sentiment in the Republican Party to put a guy like that up for nominee at this point.
And if there were, Ron DeSantis would be running away with this.
Yeah, right.
Or Nikki Haley.
Instead of Trump running away with the nomination, which it looks like is happening.
But remember, Iowa hasn't happened yet,
Right. No one has voted. Okay, that's the thing. Always remember this. All we have on this are a bunch of polls, which may or may not be correct. Even the head-to-heads between Biden and Trump, Biden and DeSantis, all of those things, all the things that the pollsters want to do to kind of drum up interest. Until we start seeing some votes, we really don't know what the electorate is really going to do in the end. So we need some really hard data, and we're not going to get that till next year. So it's all hypothetical to this point. Maybe DeSantis has more support than the polls show him. I don't know, but we'll start seeing that once these votes start getting counted. If Trump runs away with a nomination, okay, he runs away with a nomination.
Well, Dwight, if I may, speaking of polls, now that I think about it, there's a West Virginia poll that has head-to-head with Manchin losing to Justice by 13 points, but he's up over Alex by like 6 or 7.
Really?
But I saw that poll today, and I thought of us.
A couple weeks ago we were actually hanging out with Alex. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if is that really all that surprising, though, Dave. I mean, Justice has been the governor.
No, it's not surprising.
He's got a track record. I mean,
I agree.
Alex is, for those who know Alex, we like him. He's a good guy.
He's a friend of ours.
Yeah, but I don't know that he's necessarily distinguished himself enough, to run against a guy like Manchin, head-to-head. Yeah, Justice definitely would have the advantage there by far. But this is, let him run. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Let's get through this primary. I think Alex can win the primary.
It might be close. Who knows? I'm not going to put my money on either guy at this point. I don't
know the other guy, but Alex he's very blue collar. He's he's kind of the man of the people as far as I can tell. I don't know him very well, but the times I met him back in 10 years ago when he was chairman for the Maryland GOP, he did a great job there controlling all the rowdiness there. So he definitely has leadership skills in that. And then just talking to him, he's certainly got a good presence and a good like an air of authority that without being overbearing. So I think he's very down to earth. So it's kind of like, again, I don't know how West Virginia is as a whole state, but he seems very much, as far as I get talking about the people. So
is his mom still around, Dwight?
Lala is still around. We asked her about when we were there. We asked about Lala.
Lala is great.
Yeah, she is.
But that's a seat we need to pick. That's one of the seats we need to pick up. So I was watching that, and then of course Menendez in New Jersey. Is he up? Is he up this time?
Yes, but I think his son or daughter might be running for that seat.
Well, Menendez is fighting though. He refuses to step down or anything like that. He continues to claim he's innocent and all those kind of stuff. So, he's beat back this whole thing before. He's going to try to do it again. But I think we've also seen a shift in sentiment in terms of how people like this treat. I mean, with all the pall cast over Biden, by Hunter, now you've got Menendez. You're like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is more credible this time around or something like this. It gets a little bit harder to fight this off.
Well, and the other thing is, the other significant thing someone pointed out was that it shows how bad inflation is because Menendez wanted his bribe paid in gold bars. I thought that was funny. Someone told me that the other day. I thought it was so funny. Yeah,
it's funny about Menendez. He had a guy to lick his envelopes for him. And
yeah, I mean, if Menendez was looking for a bribe in gold bars today, he'd be telling his people, it's like, go find a bunch of people to go buy the gold bars. The limit is 2 at Costco, but you can buy them there.
You can buy gold at Costco's now?
Yeah, Costco is selling gold bars, but it's a limit of 2. The price is higher than the spot price of gold. But people, it's just a weird thing because they sell out. You actually, if you go to the website, 9 times out of 10, you can't find them. It's sold out. Yeah. People are scooping. They have this mentality about Costco, which I love Costco, is that Costco sells it must be a good deal. The gold bars are not a good deal. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm not looking.
Now, if it goes up, you'll be fine. But if you could get the gold cheaper somewhere else than buying it from Costco. But if Costco sells something, it's like this mentality is we got to go buy it. It's just crazy.
What's funny? A few weeks ago, they had the brownie brittle brownie bar was on sale. And if you don't hit Costco's the first day or second day or the third day, good luck finding any of that brownie brittle anywhere. It's actually like that with the Cascade dishwashing pods too. If you don't get there early when they're on sale, they were.
I'm going to push back against the brownie brittle because I'm severely addicted to that stuff and only buy it when it goes on the buy one get one. Costco.
Yeah, that's when it goes away real fast.
They bring in a whole bunch of that stuff, but it does over time. During how long is the sale period? About a month. When you get to the end of the sale period, stuff like that gets harder to find.
Well, you know what I find that before we move on, my last thought about Costco's, Cheez-Its, you got the little square Cheez-Its, right? But then they also have these Cheez-It chips type thing. Costco's used to carry that, and I have not seen those at Costco's in over 2 years. I guess because of Brandon.
Yeah,
I don't know. I blame Brandon.
Right, who knows about the cheeses in particular, but if you look at
the best backer on the planet.
You look at Sam's and Costco, just in a general sense, is that they're always changing the mix. I mean, part of it I think is supply chain and whether or not they can get it. The other thing is that if a particular item just shows that it's not going to sell in the high enough volume they want to, it just gets dropped. It drives us crazy because sometimes we always have this mentality, we'll just go get it at Costco, and then you go and it's like, what? They're not stocking it anymore.
It's funny. I cannot find Coke Zero in bottles at Costco's, but they sell the regular Coke and the Diet Cokes, but they don't sell the Coke Zeros. It's like
and you have, and sometimes it's regional and stuff like that. But if you go back, 20 some years or whatever, we used to get our frozen orange juice from Costco, and then
frozen oranges.
Then they discontinued it, and it was a great deal, that type of thing. Though we did, I will say, so my final thing on Costco is that I love Cholula sauce. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get it here anymore. They used to sell these things in 2-packs either at Sam's or Costco. My wife, when we were out in Arizona with Spencer and everything like that, she happened to go to Costco and one of the Costco's in Arizona if you're in the Phoenix area, You've got like a Costco within 5 miles of almost anywhere. There are like 4 Costco's in the Gilbert, Phoenix, Mesa area. It's ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah, it's great. But it's great. I mean, and they have tons of people. She found the Cholula sauce, so I don't have to go and spend more money to buy the small bottle at Walmart versus getting a nice big bottle in a 2-pack. So she.
I was going to say I just was at BJ's the other day. And they actually had the 2-pack of the Cholula sauce.
Yeah, but
the one that's
that means I got to go out to Colombia.
well, that's why I am.
And I
so,
got to
you know,
join DJ.
if I had known you wanted the Cholula sauce, I would have gotten you a pack. But
Next time when I run out of the Cholula sauce, I'm going to be telling you, it's like, Jeff,
yeah,
give me the Cholula sauce, and I'm going to Venmo you the money.
yeah, that'll work.
But
Now, hey, thank you, everybody. Now I've got a source.
yes,
You solved one of my first world problems today.
but it's still, I don't like when people say, "Oh," like I remember when I was trying to decide between buying a BMW X7 or a Mercedes GL, Cadillac Escalade, or another Yukon, and somebody said, "Well, that's a first world problem." I go, yeah, it may be a first world problem, but it's still a problem that needs to be solved. It's not like are they saying first world problems are less than third world problems, or 1%ers, the 10% problems are not important as the 90% of the people's problems?
So,
Well, I'll put it this way: if you're gonna get on a waiting list for the electric Hummer for 2 years and be complaining that you've got to wait 2 years to get an electric Hummer, I'm not gonna feel very sorry for you.
yeah.
So again, I'm just not saying that's not a problem. It's just a problem nobody else cares about.
They should. I care about their problems,
See, a problem I really don't care that much about are all the EV chargers that are the non-Tesla EV chargers that are broken across America and never get maintained.
That's why I buy a gas-powered car.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying, the Tesla superchargers, I mean, it's a built-up infrastructure, so it is maintained. The other ones, it's like one of those things. It's like it's like almost like a telephone booth. I mean, yes, you put money into it, you get something out of it, but who maintains those things? So the the standalone EVs, they always are, from what I've seen, they're always out of service. It's always a pain to see, which ones are compatible, which ones aren't. So it's like if you're Tesla, it's not a big deal, but if you've got another vehicle.
And that's why a lot of the car manufacturers decided they're going to the Tesla standard with their EVs, because they know Tesla has a well-maintained system, right? You don't have the problem. So Stellantis and Volkswagen, I guess they run EV America chargers, and then there's this EV Go, right? And you know how Biden is big on all electrify America.
Wait, Fiat is running an EV station.
I listen, this tech podcast I listen to. They have a guy who works for Guidehouse Insights, the big car review outfit, and these guys are very pro EV and they think this is a great thing. But they also admit, on this last show I listened to over the weekend, that the problem is that these other chargers are not well maintained. The other problem is that depending upon the car you have, also determines how much charging you need. And so some of the chargers, the non-Tesla chargers, some of them are 150 kilowatt and others are like 350, right? And some of the cars can only charge to a certain degree, so they don't need the 350. But people don't know what their car needs, so then they go occupy the high capacity charger, and the people who need the high capacity charger get shut out, and then they get angry. And so, it's like there's also a lack of education among the car manufacturers. They don't even tell the car owners, by the way, only go to these here's the chargers you need to go to. Don't use that high capacity charger because somebody else needs it.
See, Don,
the hard problem is that people who have those other private systems, they're not making any money with it. There's not enough volume, and then they and there's just no way for how there's so many broken ones that nobody bothers to go fix them, and then just cascades.
Yeah. And here's something else for you, Don. Us who drive coal burning, fossil fuel burning automobiles and gas. I know there isn't diesel and regular unleaded gas to put in my car. That's kind of like what you're saying with the chargings. You don't know if they need the heavy or light charge. And come on, people, EV owners of America. It's
not just that. So it's the whole ecosystem. So not the fact that you got these charging stations that don't work, but suppose that like we had twice as many owners of EV vehicles. So now you're going to have twice as many charging stations, which they may not work. But then what are you going to do with the power capacity? I mean, a lot of these places aren't really wired for consuming this much electricity off the grid. That's going to cause problems there. We're not going to build a charging station next to each substation. And then beyond that, it's still so the fact that we get electricity from burning coal. So is burning coal better than burning gas? Until we actually go nuclear or something where we actually are not burning fossil fuels, it doesn't matter whether you burn gasoline or if you burn coal, because it's still fossil fuel. It's just solid or liquid. Until we can actually get off that, then I'll entertain an argument that's one's better than the
here's
other.
something, Jeff. One thing Vivek said last week or 2 weeks ago in Prince George's County, nuclear power.
Mm-hmm.
We should go nuclear, and because nuclear.
Absolutely. I mean, you know me. I talk about it all the time.
Yeah,
Vivek was great. I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to win, but his platform is one I can stand behind, because he does care about the issues that are not just the political issues, but the actually, the energy issues, the infrastructure issues that actually make America self-sustaining. Right now, we're so dependent upon China for material, for importing stuff. We're dependent upon other countries for oil imports. We're not independent by any means. I mean, we still are a leader, a superpower, but we're not by any means independent. So I consider these to be like, national security concerns, because again, if we can be shut down by China, if we can be shut down by OPEC, we're not independent. We are dependent. Yeah.
And before we go to our next segment, I just want to play a small segment of the Ehrlich video from last night. It's the tail end of it. It was a 15-minute video, but I mean, people were engaged for full 15 minutes, So here, let me share the screen. And let's do it. This is the video.
Every time of my life. Was this played during the dinner or just kind of
this is right before Governor Ehrlich spoke. And there's a whole, we did a run through of everybody from William Donald Schaefer. We had Joe Curran speak. Well, not Joe Curran. Kerwin, is that Joe Kerwin, the former chancellor of the University of Maryland? Yeah, he was speaking as well.
Was it William Kerwin?
He was talking about schools and regents and so on.
So was Steele there last night?
No, Steele did not come.
Dwight, did they have a member representing the Spiro T. Agnew family?
His nephew was there. His nephew's in the Baltimore County Census Committee. And you guys, it's on YouTube, so people watch the whole thing. I recommend. It's a good 15 minutes to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good 15 minutes.
Who put that together? Was that you or somebody else?
Greg Massoni, and I did splices in there because Greg had already had this video created, and I was doing what I did. I added stuff. I added pictures and stuff like that into that. So I thought it was basically the way Greg Massoni and I, when we were doing this, we visioned it as being like, when you go to a Republican National Convention and before the nominee comes to accept the nomination, to do a little bio video of the guy. That's what we did. We kind of just set that up, and we had everybody from William Donald Schaefer spoke in there. Koch, we had clips of Kocha, Dirk Hare. Peter Angelos even spoke. We had clips from Peter Angelos and Democrats, Republicans, Independents. It's we'll put up the link later on our Facebook page, but it's well worth to watch. It's on YouTube. Wonderful, wonderful video. So
that's good. Yeah. But those were good years during the Ehrlich years.
They were. The grass was a little greener. The sun was a little shinier. We were all a little bit younger. So yeah, but it was a great evening last night. And that's what we had. We got signs made up. I think this is what you want to hear. Basically, that say, we still love our gov, and I think we do. We still do. By the way, most important thing there was our Dr. Politics ad on the back page. And as you see, Dave, we put the doctors that we don't have pictures of with the gov. We did little bubbles for them. And this is, new.
So what?
Great.
So what was that? Was that current and former doctors, or is it now just the ones that have been on the last?
No, it's all the doctors basically. Because it's funny. One of the doctors, when I originally did the ad, they go, "I'm disappointed that Dr. Z is not on there." And I'm like, "Fine, we'll put everyone in there." So it's basically past, present, alumnus, all the doctors.
You're so inclusive, Dwight. I'm so proud of you.
I know. Don't say I don't believe in the I part of the D. But on a serious note, we're running a little ticker at the bottom where we stand with Israel. And the troglodytes from hell struck again last week. Mm-hmm. And thank you, Matt Gaetz, for screwing up Congress. Congress is not even in session right now because we don't have a speaker yet.
Yeah.
And
yeah, Matt Gaetz is single-handedly.
Is he a Hamas collaborator? Mm-hmm. I wonder. Matt, have you ever associated with Hamas? Because it seems more than a coincidence.
All right. Well, that'd be a stretch, but
I hear everyone on MSNBC and the others talk about blaming Republicans. They can't even govern themselves. And I thought about that, and I thought, wait a minute. Every Democrat and 8 Republicans voted to get rid of McCarthy.
Yeah.
And so now we're in this little jam. Maybe they could make the pro tem McHenry just move him up and just say, all right, well, you're the speaker. And then
I don't know. Evidently, he doesn't want the job.
I mean, I think we we talked about this before too. I mean, in terms of McCarthy, I mean, McCarthy, he may not have been loved by everybody, but he by and large, he was getting the job done. I mean, the mistake really was agreeing to the whole thing where one person could start that petition for discharge.
Yeah,
and that's what's led to his downfall. But we see with this turmoil. I mean, Scalise couldn't get the votes, so now it's Jordan's turn, but there's no guarantee he's going to get the votes. So we could still be speakerless there. Is McCarthy another guy that can step back in there and do it again? The Republicans are really just they're a hot mess. They're just mixed up.
I think we should just, I say let's let Jim Jordan be the speaker. He's not a bad guy. Because trust me, the Matt Gaetz of our party are going to start hating on Jim Jordan after 2 weeks he's speaker. Because, oh my God, he's such a,
Yeah, but I think Don kind of alluded to this, that the die was cast once McCarthy said, okay, one person can move to vacate. Because you knew that's coming eventually. They'll just wait.
Yeah, I mean,
have some excuse, and then
they did that because they were waiting for a time to pull that trigger, right, Dave?
Yeah.
I mean, we knew that day would come. But it's a stupid thing to do anyway. I mean, here we are, a year away from an election, another crucial midterm, and they do this. It's like, what are you telling the American people about your ability to govern? I mean, I don't want to agree with anybody on MSNBC whatsoever, but right now they are, they're kind of headless because of this, and and it's doubly worse too because if you need Congress to appropriate money to do things, and if they're not inside, if you don't have a leader to guide you and guide that process through, it's a mess.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I mean, it's just.
I tell you, our old friend Tom DeLay never would have let this happen.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the case for a lot of them.
The thing that strikes me is with those 8, they don't seem to care. I mean, it's like they don't seem to care that they cause such a cluster.
They put themselves before country.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
the thing too is that it gives the Republicans a bad name too, because we complain about the leftists, but in the Republicans we have the moderates and we have the far rights, and you're never going to get that chasm bridged at this point. But having a speaker like McCarthy, probably a little more moderate, and he's going to not so you got Gaetz saying, well, we should have just stuck it out and shut down the government. So what then? That's going to upset people. It's going to affect people's lives.
Shutting down the government. So even Mark Levin was against the idea of shutting down the government. It doesn't. I hate to say it doesn't end well for us in an election.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a good move. It's never a good
And
move.
so, you got to compromise a little bit. And so the compromise cost him his speakership. And now, like I said, I think it took 15 rounds to get, McCarthy, elected as speaker. So how long is it going to take before we have another speaker? And in the meantime,
Well,
all the attention's on us as opposed to legit issues.
And I think
It's
Dave
just
was
really annoying.
saying about with McCarthy, you had a guy. You guys said you had a guy who managed for 269 days or whatever it was to get that caucus somewhat unified to get through a lot of things. But then you had those recalcitrant people who are waiting for a chance to dump him, and they use the government shutdown as an excuse to do so.
mhm.
But where do they leave us, in the meantime, during this period of time? Steve Scalise, if he'd been elected speaker, I think he would have still, he doesn't have the skills of McCarthy. If Jim Jordan manages to find the votes, he still doesn't have the skills of McCarthy to bring the whole group together. They have their factions, that they get. I mean, if you can't get enough votes really to get through it out of your own caucus, and then you've got to face the full House, you've got a problem. And the Republicans have got a problem because they really don't have the consensus candidate to carry them to the speakership, which they need to do. And this is a bad look for them. This allows the MSNBCs of the world to pound on the Republicans, which is the last thing they really need to do, because I think, as also we've discussed before, this takes away from all the bad stuff that's going on with Biden's policies, whether or not it's his economic policies or even the policy in Israel, which they seem to be very confused about at first, right?
Yeah.
They weren't really sure what they were supposed to do.
And why are they not showing these pictures? If they've got the pictures of, granted they could put a little warning label, they could blur out the decapitated heads and stuff like that. But I think, we need to see the picture. This is not, I remember from history class after World War II, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, we never knew. We never knew it was this bad." Well, guess what? We know it's this bad, and we're still trying to bury our heads in the sand as not acknowledging fact what horrible atrocities Hamas and Hezbollah and the rest of the troglodytes from hell in the Middle East are doing right now, frankly.
Hey, did
Hamas is they're not self-funded. You talk about Hamas and Hezbollah. They're getting money from other people.
They're getting money
not
from
exposing
Iran and Russia. Russia has always been there to support Syria. They supported ISIS, the JV team. Remember?
Yeah.
I mean, Putin definitely, he's enjoying this, right? I mean, he's fighting a very tough slog in Ukraine. That has not worked out like he hoped. This gives him a chance to kind of divert attention, buys him some more time with that. I mean, and the Wall Street Journal has, they've been digging up a lot of stuff showing how much money came in through to Hamas via crypto from a lot of different sources. There's a lot of funny stuff going on here in terms of what's going on. Hamas did not plan this overnight. This was a long-term plan that they laid out here, and then they went after innocent civilians, to do this. And then you have our Secretary of State, Blinken. He puts out a tweet saying, we need a ceasefire, for which he had to retract the tweet, because they took so much criticism for that.
Why are we calling for a ceasefire? I'd say we should be telling the Israelis, it's they're an autonomous country, but I would not be shedding too many tears if, say, something happened and they just managed to drop a few bombs.
You're right. I mean, look, they've warned the people in the Gaza Strip to evacuate, go to the south, because we're planning a major ground offensive. The UN says, but you can't do that. That's too many people. What are they going to do? It's like, look,
that is called collateral damage, frankly.
Well, I mean, Hamas came first. They attacked first. Israel has every right to defend.
What about the innocent Israelis that have been killed by Hamas? Where was the UN? They were so oddly silent when this first happened. And then you have American academia going around. I am so proud of trying to think of the company where they said we don't want to hire anybody that's associated with Hamas. The student protesters. That is great.
Yeah, I mean, you have Harvard, which allowed those pro-Palestinian groups to issue a statement that made it almost sound like Harvard was endorsing the Palestinian state, and that everything what Hamas had just done, for which it took the president a couple of days, from Harvard to to try to put some distance between them. But by that time, I think the damage had been done.
Yeah, but
you've got AOC and the Squad coming out, saying we need to defund Israel. It's like, no, wrong. The Squad is terrible enough as it is. But
I mean, look at Rashid Tlaib. She has a Palestinian flag in front of. I mean, it may as well be a Nazi flag, frankly.
And it's in bad taste now to be flying it. But has she come out and condemned Hamas by name?
No, she has not.
I think they tried to question her about Hamas, and she refuses to answer the question.
Yeah.
And by the way, here's the other thing. You have a lot of where's CARE, that peace-loving group that only wants peace and harmony? Why haven't they condemned Hamas yet? See, I kind of mentioned this when people are saying, "Oh, we're working with the Muslim groups to do this and do that in Montgomery County schools and so on." That's great. But what's going to happen when Israel's back's against the wall? They're going to turn on Israel. They're going to turn on the Republicans. It's like it is like, I'll be blunt. Hamas and those folks are a bunch of savages, and you got to deal with them the way you deal with savages, frankly.
And they've killed Americans. They've
killed
American citizens.
And there is no room. President Reagan said, "We don't negotiate with terrorists." Why? And the United Nations is, where were they when the missiles rained down on Israel from Hamas? When they took all those innocent Israelis and Americans and other Europeans and other nationals hostage? Where was the United Nations then? Now they're telling Israel, "Oh, you can't go in and do a campaign to get back their hostages and basically clean out." Basically, go after, take the, basically just clean out the terrorists, sweep them, I think it's time we just withdraw from the United Nations, frankly. They're nothing more than a hate America crowd, and frankly, get out of Manhattan, frankly. We can turn that UN, give it to Donald Trump to convert that into Trump Towers too, and turn that into condos,
Hey, it's prime real estate.
Well, so you talk about that. We do have like war standards and stuff. I mean, there's a whole point of the Geneva Conventions and such.
Yes.
But if
yet we are arming the Ukrainians.
Right. So I'm saying, but if you got people like Hamas and others that don't abide by those conventions and stuff, and they still get away,
they weren't signatories to them. They weren't even signatories. So.
And I'm not opposed to like peaceful negotiations. I mean, I don't honestly know how I feel about a Palestinian state because I can see both arguments. But the point is that you don't go around. I mean, Israel's only ever defended themselves. They've never like been the aggressors and try to to eliminate them. And now they're being like cast as like that they all they can do is apparently defend themselves. And like again, that's like imagine if any other country were invaded, all we could do was just like say, well, you can camp in our front yard. You just can't get into my house, and that you throw a rock in my house, I can catch it and I can try to defuse it, or you throw me a bomb and I have to defuse it, but I can't ever get you off my front yard. I mean, that's just not normal.
Here's a little bit of a history lesson. Ehud Barak, former Israeli prime minister, gave away everything in the kitchen sink that Yasser Arafat at that Camp David meeting when Bill Clinton was president. You know what Yasser Arafat said? He said no. Because Yasser Arafat and the PLO or the Palestinian Authority, or the PLA, whatever you want to call them, they don't want the existence of Israel. They want nothing but shoving every Israeli into the Mediterranean. And I'm sorry, that is not going to happen. Israel has a better claim on Gaza and the West Bank than they have to Israel. They have got no claim on Israel. Why don't they go? And by the way, you notice countries around them do have a population of Palestinians, and why? I mean, if you're so sympathetic, neighbors who are pro-Palestinian there, if you're so simple, why don't you let them come and live in your country? Because they don't even want them there. The Jordanians don't want them. The Saudis don't want them. The Syrians really don't want them either, frankly.
Yeah, and I think the whole talk of a two-state solution, I think, is just fantasy because,
No.
like you said, the old Ayub Barak, offered similar sorts of deals. They said no.
Yeah.
And at this point, I mean, I don't think Israel's going to want to give up land and live next to a country that wants to destroy them.
Exactly. And it's like this,
don't
right?
think it's going to happen.
Let me do this book here by Caroline Glick, our friend Matthew Boldy's aunt. This is the book I recommend everyone read. It's basically, I'm all for a one-state solution, and that one state is Israel. This is the only solution for peace in the Middle East.
I want to know what Hamas thought by attacking Israel, what the heck they were going to do. Did they think Israel was just going to roll over, that they had been attacked, their citizens had been killed, brutally murdered, innocent civilians?
Well, you know what? I think I think they wanted to do it because if they're concerned about Israel establishing relations with the Arab neighbors, with the Abraham Accords, but also with Saudi Arabia. And in effect, Israel could just bypass them. And so by doing this attack and then eliciting maybe an overreaction according to the Arab world, maybe that could drive a wedge between Israel and her Arab neighbors. So maybe that's why they're doing it.
I see two things. First of all, they want to destabilize Israel, and they want to provoke, a reaction from Israel. They want them basically counterattack to a point where it will affect Israel's ability to negotiate with its neighbors. So if Israel actually does a counterattack and not just defends themselves, then that affects their bargaining rights, because nobody wants an aggressive Israel as a neighbor. And they've never been aggressive, but if Hamas, Hezbollah can actually show that, say, well, look at this, Israel is being aggressive, then they can use that as an argument to try to derail their negotiating power.
And in 1948, their neighbors started an invasion of the state of Israel. They tried to crush Israel in a cradle. They did it again in 67 and in 72. And let me tell you, in the 67 war, you had that basically a clown named Abdul Nasser, who basically seized the Suez Canal, threatening maritime shipping, and the Israelis, they attacked Israel. Israel captured Sinai, thereby freeing the Suez. And, basically, every time these their neighbors have tried to attack Israel, it's never worked out well for any of those people.
But to your point, I mean, so these are the borders that are contested. Like, we're talking about these different dates that, where these borders existed. But again, offering.
Well, what if we go back to the? I say we go back to
like,
the King David borders of Israel, and that we'll go back to King David.
The point is that there is no negotiating. There is no amount of land that Israel would occupy that they'd be happy with. They don't want to have Israel there, so it's not even about going back to a previous border. That might just be a way just to reduce their influence, but they're not going to be happy with that. Regardless of what the border is, they're not going to be like, okay, well, we're going to stop here and we're going to cease all hostilities. That's just not going to happen.
Yep. And by the way, we are at 7:58. Great discussions over at final thoughts this week. We'll start with you, Don. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I guess one is that your O's got swept.
I know, but I'm still happy because something. As I said, if they lost every single game from the All-Star break to now, I would have been just as happy because they did very well, and let me tell you, they did. They went deeper into the postseason than the Nationals did.
Yeah, the Nationals are, until they get a new ownership, they're not really going to go anywhere. So that's kind of, give those credit. I mean, winning 101 games or whatever it was an amazing feat. The problem for the Orioles is that they have one player signed for contract next year, and that's their 34-year-old catcher. He's signed for $4 million. So John Angelos has got to open up his checkbook, and he's got to lock down these players. They've got some other great players in the pipeline. Yeah. The question for O's fans is, will John Angelos spend money to keep this team intact, and also spend money to add the players necessary to compete better with teams like Texas. Their starting pitching was not up to snuff, and I think the young team without playoff experience was a factor. And the Rangers were just red hot. When they face the Astros coming up, it'll be very interesting.
And John Angelos, something, Orioles magic is not cheap. Okay, so let's just get that. If you want to see the magic, you need to open up that checkbook of yours.
Yeah, and that's the big question mark, because Angelos he hasn't really given an indication to O's fans about how committed he is to spending money on this team. But you won the AL East. You want to defend it, you better sign these players. You've got some great young stars, but they also missed opportunity probably to lock them down at a cheaper price. The Atlanta Braves, even though they got bounced by the Phillies, the thing about the Braves is at the core of their team, they locked a lot of those guys up for 6, 7, 8, 9 years at very favorable, contracts. They're a model for where other teams ought to look at. So, you got a bright young star, get him an 8-year contract, give him decent money, but you don't have to give away the store, and you'll probably wind up with a very team-friendly contract by the time it's all over with. I think the risk reward is very much in the team's favor.
Yes.
But Angelos he's cheap. That's the problem for the O's fans on that. Trump endorsed Kari Lake in Arizona. I'm not a Kari Lake fan.
What's she running for now?
She's going to run for Senate. It'll be interesting because, we still haven't heard from Sinema. She hasn't declared officially for Senate. Though she probably would have the inside track, but the Democrats are going to run somebody too.
I wish Doug Ducey would run for Senate.
Yeah, he'd be good.
Yeah, Ducey he's a lot like Hogan in the sense of if Ducey ran, he probably could win. Hogan would be a formidable candidate in Maryland if he ran. That type of a thing. But Ducey is the one they wanted to run, and he just he didn't want to run. But
then there's J.D. Hayworth. He's another one that could probably win.
Ducey may. I could conceivably see that if Trump is out of the picture, if Trump doesn't get the nomination, or if he loses the presidency, the race this time around, and just basically says he's done, then maybe a Ducey would run for Senate. Ducey and Trump don't have a great relationship, and then Ducey may be waiting for Trump just to be out of the picture, so he doesn't have this guy just kind of interfering with things as Trump has a tendency to do. But that would return the seat into Republican hands for sure. Kari Lake, I'm just not convinced that she's the one. Is
Kari Lake the one that believes in chemtrails, or is that the other one?
I don't know, but she can get pretty nutty.
Kari, that is her.
she can get pretty nutty about that. And then we saw George Will endorsing. He's trying to get Tim Scott to drop out of the race and endorse Nikki Haley. Though the fact is, his wife either has or is working for Scott, so it's kind of funny.
I think so.
But Nikki Haley, she did pick up the Will Hurd endorsement.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Will Hurd.
Once again, Nikki Haley may be someone who has more votes than we think. But once again, until we get the votes, we really won't know.
Yeah.
But she seems to be on a little bit of an upswing as they're all going. Now, somebody, I don't know if somebody just told me the other day that Vivek has got one of his top people, either donors or somebody, is like a big, pro Palestine, pro Hamas kind of guy or something like that.
No, it doesn't surprise me considering he wanted to defund Israel.
Yeah. So that if that's really true, that could be very problematic for Vivek. If that becomes something out there for that, and then Hillary wanting to deprogram all the Trump cultists, so that it's like, Hillary, I think you're trying to stay relevant, but you're not. So.
Yeah.
What's she going to send us out to re-education camps?
Yeah, it was just like, I think there are a lot of diehard Trump people that are just absolutely crazy, but they have a right to be like that. That's fine, but this whole Hillary is still, she's still stuck in the previous election. She's can't believe that she lost, and she's still going for it.
Let it go. It's almost 8 years, Hillary.
Let it go. Trump needs to let go. You lost the 2020 election. Move on from that. if you want to win in 2024, focus on the programs, beat the heck out of Biden and his economics and all the other stuff the Democrats are doing wrong. Don't try to relitigate or argue the 2020 election. Focus on Biden is so vulnerable with Harris and everything like this. There's so much you can get him on. Forget about 2020. 2020 is past. Move on. So anyway, that's it.
Okay. Final thoughts, David Shepard.
Well, I want to say congratulations. The Orioles had a great season, and so you should be proud and happy, even though they got bounced early. But
I was happy in June.
But I'm still not a fan of this whole playoff season system for baseball. You had the top winners of the season, the Orioles, the Braves, and I guess the Dodgers are all gone, and they won the most games. And so it's kind of weird. It almost seems as the regular season even worth much of anything. It's worth something, of course, to get into the playoffs. But
yeah, we got teams that never would have, like, 15. How long have they been doing? I think it's wow, it's almost 25 years ago or 30 years. About 23 years ago.
But this is sort of
the Orioles would be the division winners, and the people that were number 2 were just not in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I this dates myself, but I remember when you had the American League East would play the winner of the American League West, and they'd go on to the World Series and vice versa.
Right.
And even before my time, I heard that you just had one team. Whoever won the most games in the American League would play the winner against whoever won the most teams.
That was in the black and white days of baseball.
Yeah,
as in black and white TV days. Before they had lights.
I don't think the first playoff system really went into effect until like 69 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I guess that's right. Yeah,
I think that was the beginning of it, and then the leagues added the extra playoff, the third spot. So that's why we have that. I mean, this was a weird year in that sense, Dave, but I think it also showed that the Orioles, the Braves, and the Dodgers had a glaring weakness going into the playoffs, and that was their starting pitching.
Yeah.
And that was the big question mark as to the Braves actually had good pitching, but a lot of their people had been injured. The Dodgers had strung together a good season, but they had also lost a lot of their people. So, when when Braves and the Dodgers are starting to rely on a lot of these rookies into the playoffs, they weren't really ready for that. So neither team was deep enough on that. I mean, the Dodgers starting pitching, I mean, the 3 games they lost, right? They gave up 13 earned runs in like 4 1/3 innings.
Yeah.
You can't win games like that. I mean, Clayton Kershaw got 1 out and gave up 5 runs. And he's a great pitcher, but he has a generally horrible track record in the postseason.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I thought it was a good season, so good for the Orioles. But come back next time. And then I did read the George Will article. I tend to agree with him on this one. I really think it's going to come down to the alternative being Haley or DeSantis. And I think the others all have so many weaknesses that it's going to be either Haley or DeSantis. So we'll see if the party unifies, takes George Will's advice and unifies behind her.
Hey, Dave, one more thing on the playoffs. I was like, would you be in favor of, like, after the first round to reseed everybody based on their records as to who's left? So because if they had done that, we would have seen different matchups. The Braves would not have played the Phillies, for example. Yeah. They would have played the Diamondbacks, which might have been.
So we just delayed Hanoi James and the Atlanta Braves.
Hey, look, I still believe in the tomahawk chop. Okay.
Oh, I like that too. Yeah.
But that's very I'm surprised. I am shocked that Hanoi Jane and Ted Turner, who were morbidly afraid of the name Redskins, were appropriating Native American culture by doing the tomahawk chop.
Yeah. I was in a speaking of baseball, and I'll cut this short because I know we got a time issue, but I was at this mall the other day and I had to wait for somebody, and I was walking around and I went to the sports shop and they had a lot of those old retro Major League Baseball jerseys, and it reminded me of my childhood. Whenever I see hats and jerseys, from the olden days, 70s and 80s. Reminds me of my childhood. But Atlanta had those great powder blue. Remember those 80s powder blue Braves shirts? And Kansas City had the similar colors of Kansas City across it. I thought it was very nice. But anyway, that I'll cut it off to give time for you guys to finish.
I want to throw one more. I just want to ask Dave one quick question before we move on. Have you ever heard of a guy named Todd Radom? Okay, look him up. He is he has designed a lot of baseball logos. He's also and things like that. You look this guy. This guy has got baseball history, tremendous stuff about baseball stadiums of the old days and things like that. If you really love baseball, you should look into him. He's done some fantastic stuff, and it would bring back a lot of memories.
Oh yeah, no, those are good. My earliest child memory is, remember the Pete Rose hitting streak when he was chasing DiMaggio
the Reds. Yeah.
He I think surpassed the National League record, but anyway, I remember that's one of my early memories, and I think the network.
Did he bet anybody on that I'll beat DiMaggio's record when he started? You think he said, "Yeah, I'll bet you $100 I beat Joe DiMaggio's record."
But this is how big baseball at one time was, a national pastime, because I think the other networks were keeping an eye on, and they didn't have the game, but they were keeping an eye on whether Pete Rose would get a hit tonight. So
that was a special report. They broke into programming when he did that.
I think so. And I remember when he broke Ty Cobb's hitting record.
But local television broke in when Cal Ripken broke the Lou Gehrig record as well.
Yeah, I think that's
not national news, but Pete Rose got national.
A record that will never be broken because of the way baseball plays now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I do think Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've met Pete Rose at like a trade show. And I can't say that I thought he doesn't have a sparkling personality.
Yeah.
But did you ask him if he'd give odds on? Did he have odds?
He was. He was very good.
Yeah.
He was a hard worker. He's a man that didn't have like true natural ability. I get the sense that he just worked harder than anybody else. And in that case, we should celebrate him for a guy.
He also pushed Stouffer's Pizza.
Yeah, I mean, the way the Hall of Fame goes is that you kind of wonder whether or not there'll be a point in time when the steroid era, people, the Clemens or the Bonds will get voted in by someone. And if that log jam, if that ever breaks, then you've got to take another look at Pete Rose.
Yeah.
But isn't McGuire in the Hall of Fame still? Mark McGuire?
He's not in. No, I mean, anybody associated with that era pretty much is their persona non grata for the baseball committee. But they have so many different committees, it seems, nowadays you can get in. Harold Baines got in. You're like, okay, really?
Yeah.
So there's some watering down of the Hall of Fame, unfortunately, and I love the Hall of Fame.
I think we need to have a Congressional Hall of Fame where we do Hall of Fame members of Congress. Maybe they'll prompt to be in their best behavior.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think as a senator, Joe Biden should get into the hall. I mean, he was there for 40 years, but what did he do? What did he really accomplish? So
I don't think Joe Biden can find the hall today, though.
Yeah. But anyway, that's it. Good seeing. Good talking.
Yeah. Final thoughts, Jeff Thornton.
So I was going to say, unfortunately, the only thing I know less about than politics is sports.
That's fine. Sorry about all that.
I don't have much to contribute. Talk about computers or technology, then I can,
Unlike politics, you can make it up as you're going along.
Yeah. So, the one thing I'll say is
you
that
get loud enough and often enough, you can convince people that you're right. Just ask the Democrats. Look at them.
Right. So I first of all, I'll as far as the news, I don't know if you guys have heard about it or not, but I think it's funny. I've heard the rounds about the possibility of Trump becoming Speaker of the House. So I think that's would be interesting if that actually were to come about. But that's probably more likely than some other scenarios where we elect another speaker.
Can you imagine if we made him Speaker, and by some dumb luck, Joe Biden resigns and Kamala resigns, he'd become president again.
Yeah, but he's not going to get 217 votes. You got a number of Republicans in the House caucus.
No, that's succession. No, that's a succession line, though.
Yeah.
It's like if Prince William and the Crown Princess die, Harry gets to be king. And
So
Meghan
anyway,
Markle gets to be queen.
I thought that was kind of a funny thing about just the possibility of that. So, not likely, but still just a entertaining thought. But other than that, the only thing I also have is that this next week I'm not going to be in town. I'm going to actually be doing a trail hike across the Appalachian Trail. So be starting off in Linden, Virginia, and which is close to Front Royal, and then going down hopefully about 75 miles or so for a week, and then we'll see how far that takes us. But hopefully the weather holds up. So I've hiked before, but this is going to be a different season with weather that's going to be colder and hopefully not rainy. But keep your thoughts out for me. Just make sure that I don't expect to be mauled by a bear
The
or
bears,
lost at,
yeah. By the way, you
lost
may,
in the woods.
while you're down by Front Royal, you should go to the Flour Mill. Great
Which
food.
flour
It's a
mill?
good restaurant. It's a restaurant in downtown Front Royal.
Okay. Yeah.
But
I
the
was gonna say,
city of Front Royal, unless it's changed, but I seem to remember Front Royal has no chain restaurants in it at all.
I don't
Within the city
know.
limits.
In Linden, there's a place called the Apple House, which I used to go to camp
I've been
right
there.
next to there. And the Apple House it's been around since I was a kid, and it's grown and grown and grown. And now they have, the restaurant part of it is gotten bigger, and they've got good food. They've got their own like wine tasting area. But my favorite thing is they got a great selection of hot sauces. So they don't have every hot
That's
sauce.
like
but they
Tijuana
have
Flats
quite
in
a-
Florida. They got
they
a
have quite
huge
a
selection.
few. So if you like hot sauces and you like apple donuts,
They're good.
then yeah, Apple House is the best place for apple donuts in my opinion. So,
Better than Krispy Kremes.
no, not there. No, I'm sure there's a Krispy Kreme in Front Royal, but not.
No, actually, won't be in the city limits though. It won't be within the city limits. It won't be outside.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't visit Front Royal that often, but I always pass through Linden because.
Only reason I
when I've
know
been
that
down to
is because we have a friend. Our friend Brett Herbeck used to be on the council. Now our friend Connie Masher is running for city council in Front Royal. Our friend Brett Herbeck used to be a councilman. I think he was also a vice mayor of Front Royal at one point.
I didn't know that. I know Brett. I didn't know he was in office.
Yeah, he was on the council, and then he was vice mayor at some point. I could be wrong, but I believe he was.
But in that area, you got if you like caverns, you get Luray Caverns, and I forget another cave that's
Skyline
a smaller
Drive.
cave. Yeah, Skyline Drive. Yeah, there.
And
That whole drive is just beautiful.
there's a winery out there. I think it's Fox Meadow. I'm not a wine drinker, but
Is that Jeff
Frederick's?
Frederick's? Is that Jeff Frederick's winery? Is Jeff Frederick's bought a winery somewhere out there?
I don't know.
Him and Amy Noon.
But it's got the most beautiful view of that I've seen in Virginia, on the deck, and you can drink wine or whatever and eat cheese. But it's a beautiful view from Fox Meadow. That's right near Linden.
Dave, we need you to come on out to our state party convention when we have it out in Wisp. I'll show you beautiful country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but any other thoughts, Jeff?
That's all I got.
Well, I want to thank my team when we put on the Ehrlich dinner. Jeff, was out there. Marcus, Governor Ehrlich, Kendall Ehrlich, Greg Massoni, Elaine Pevenstein, Al Mendelson, Adam Woods, Nicola Ambrose, Corinne Frank, Garrett Zahner, Bradley Lang, Liliana Norikis, and if I've forgotten anyone, forgive me, but I could not have, the dinner would not have happened without you guys, frankly. It was a great, great team effort for that dinner last night. And thank you, Governor Ehrlich and First Lady Kendall Ehrlich, for coming on out. And you had us all laughing and rolling in the aisles with your stories of the days of Annapolis. And as you said, we look forward. We don't look back, towards the past, because you can never look back as forgetting the guy's name. But anyways,
Satchel Paige.
Yeah. No, actually that. I was thinking of, what's his name? There's a song. The guy's a former Eagle. So anyways, that'll come to me one day, I'll tell you who it is. But that's where he did get that line from. But anyways, Thank you, everyone. It was a great event. Go on YouTube. We got this great video. We will soon have the governor's speech up as well for you guys to listen. And let me tell you, it is funny. I don't know. I was talking to the governor after. Governor, was this your stand-up routine? I know stand-up does a little bit. It's a little bit more stable than politics. But he had some great stories, and we all had a good time last night. And another final thoughts is keep the people of Israel in your prayers. They're being attacked by Satanists. I just call them Satanists, troglodytes. And we need to stand with our friends in Israel. Israel is still and is the only real democracy in the Middle East that has free and open elections. They have They have a couple of. I think they have one Palestinian or two Palestinians in the Knesset there in Israel. It is. People. They talk. It's funny how I find it funny that the LGBTers, LGBTQZ, whatever the hell they are. Those people, you know what they do to them if they were living in Hamas, in Gaza, or in Iran? They want to get to Israel because that's where they'll be safe.
Yeah, that's right.
These people, they still believe in stoning adulterers, and so on. But keep Israel. Also, the Republican Club, November 2nd, our Pizza and Politics. We are going to give all the proceeds to charities to help the people of Israel. So come on out. $10 if you're a member, $20 if you're not a member. All the proceeds that night are going to go to benefit the good people of Israel. I wanted to give it to the IDF, but I was said that we should give it to the people. Maybe we could split it 50-50 for the IDF and the people. Maybe we could pay for a couple of bullets. But anyways, thank you, everyone. Good night. We'll see everyone next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.